We've talked about the who. We've talked about the what. The third component is how. How will the professional development be provided? And I think that's what you're really here to help clarify today. We are at a point in our field where we have really come to a need for greater clarification about what we mean by some of these interprofessional approaches. In fact, right before I came here, one of my colleagues in southern North Carolina had a colleague with a researcher who's nationally one of the few people really researching effective professional development. And she said, we may be coming to a point where as we look across each of these terms, across coaching, across mentoring, across consulting, that it's not so much what is it that's unique and makes each of these different, but maybe one of the things we're looking at is what are the core qualities that cut across, and then what are things that we maybe need to think about in application. And one of the things that we'll be looking at today as you work is what cuts across. What are some of the similar capabilities, terms, concepts, as we look across rather than just down. So I think that's part of the design that we hope will really also work for you. This, I'm sorry to say, is going to be a slide that will be much clearer when you look at it. But this is a reminder that when you put who and what and how together, it really is that intersection that allows you to think about, as you're looking at an awareness level, at people for whom this may be brand new information, a who that knows not much about a topic, that what it is that you choose to address and how you address it will change. That the strategies, the approaches that we use will vary with the content and with the learners. That who, what, and how intersect as we, as individuals, as groups, as state entities, work to design, implement, and evaluate effective professional development. Those are things that we have to think about. It's what we have to do in order to avoid what many states have ended up with, which is 15 literacy initiatives, one for Head Start, one for pre-K, one for child care, one for early intervention. And I think how is it that we can really start to be clear about what we mean. One thing we can say for certain, and there's not a lot of research on effective professional development. One of the things that we know for sure is that one-shot workshops are not an effective mechanism for professional development. Dean Fixon, a colleague at my center, did some research in which as part of professional development, there was an opportunity for people to have a training, a workshop on a particular topic. Then he tried an alternate approach, which was a workshop presentation plus coaching. Workshop alone, retention rates were on the order of 10%. Workshop plus coaching, retention rates were on the order of 90%. What you're talking about today in this room are very powerful approaches, but the point is also that these are not necessarily things that you should think of happening in isolation. Now, the sad news is, as we look, and we have the research for early intervention, so we look across the nation at colleagues who are responsible for designing professional development for all the people who serve young children with disabilities birth to 5. We know for a fact that the thing they are most likely to do is one-shot workshops. I don't want to sound at all judgmental, but I strongly suspect if we looked at some of our other partners nationwide, we would find something very similar. So this is not to say those horrid people working with young children with disabilities, they didn't do it right. I think we all need to figure this out. It's harder. It's easy to count a workshop. It's harder to count a sequence of professional development. It's like prunes. when you think about a sequence of coaching experiences, it's like prunes. Are 3 too few? Are 8 too many? It's tough. This is really tricky stuff. There you go. This also this is one way that we have put it together, and sort of, for us, one of the ways to illustrate the intersection between the very contextual model and considerations that Sarah has offered, and the drill down that we talk about in terms of, all right, so if this is who and this is what, how will we implement this sequence? Because part of what you see is, in order to really design effective professional development, we need to think about those within the context of policies and resources and evaluation and access and all of those other things that even make professional development a possibility or a good idea.
I wanted to share a couple of quick stories about perspectives, and then we're going to talk about what we found looking across all of the group work so far. So very quickly, one perspective that was interesting to me this morning is someone said to me, "You look so young, I'm not sure I would listen to you." And I said, "Thank you." And then I thought about it and I reflected and I said, now that must be a shift, that I'm not so young, that I actually take that as a compliment now. So it's about perspectives. And the other perspective story I wanted to share is a friend of mine's son, and some of you might have heard this if you're familiar with working with me. I love this story. But a friend of mine's son was obsessed with Batman. And every day, he was 4 years old, would go to the preschool with his Batman cape on. Every day he had it on, no matter what. And at night, they would wash it. They finally bought another one because they acquiesced and said, okay, at least you're going to have a clean Batman cape every day. So every day he went in and he was Batman, he was Batman, he was Batman. And then one day, the teacher, the preschool teacher, said, I really want you to come in and choose a person, a real person, that is one of your heroes. And you can talk as that real person and tell us, why you chose this person, what's important to you, what you value about them. So that night, my son's friend went home and said, I need a bow tie, Dad, and I need a jacket. My friend said, oh my God, he's not going to be Batman tomorrow. I can't believe this. I'm going to have to go in. So he took off work that morning. He went in with his son. His son stood there with his bow tie and his jacket on, and he got up in front of the group when it was his turn, and he said, good morning, everyone. I'm Bruce Wayne. So challenge, opportunity. Challenge, opportunity. We welcome all the shifts of perspectives and the different contexts we're all bringing to the conversation. These are some of the cross-approach terms. When Camille and I, while you were at lunch, we started looking across all the areas, and not to do a full analysis at this point in time, but to look at where was some synergy among some of the terms, what were we seeing, what was coming up as some commonalities. Even though these are different approaches, they're part of strategies that fit together. And these are some of the common terms that we saw. And in parentheses, it's either it was all groups or 4 groups or 3 groups who came up with these similar terms, or we also, grouped them if the word wasn't exactly the same.